There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Schaff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is What in the World is Going On. I'm your host, Richard Schaff. The program sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. We are pro-Christian, pro-American, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and here, only by the grace of God. Well, I want to talk about a subject that you know a lot about, and we don't have a lot of new information. It's a pending situation, but I want to go into the background on the impeachment situation a little bit of in-depth background and what is happening that's not on the news. The analysis of the failed attempt to overthrow the results of the 2016 election. The impeachment. It's already backfiring on the Democrats, as Trump and the Republican National Committee have a bunch of high donation reports. They're having an effect on the swing voters. They accuse the Dems of ignoring the important issues, the things that need to be handled in our government that we're not even looking at. But let's look at what has happened. Within the last little bit, the Democrat Speaker, House Nancy Pelosi, announced the impeachment inquiry. And within 36 hours of that, Trump and the RNC had hauled in over $13 million in donations. They got $5 million from online donors in all 50 states, $5 million from a fundraiser, and another $3 million from a breakfast event. After the announcement, Democrats also returned to their home states and were faced with anti-impeachment protests from their own constituents, especially the red state Dems, those that won the elections in conservative districts, those that were behind the Democrats taking over the House of Representatives. Internal Republican polling showed that in 95 battleground districts, 67% of the independents viewed impeachment as being politically motivated. This reported by Breitbart News. The poll found that a Republican candidate who opposes impeachment leads a pro-impeachment Democrat by an average of 50 to 42%. It also found that in districts that Trump carried in 2016 that are currently held by Democrats, the Republican candidate holds a 54 to 38% lead. Let's hope that holds through the next election. All the Democrats can think about: impeach, impeach, impeach. Meanwhile, on the same subject, did you see where Representative Matt Gaetz, he's a good man from down in Florida, he got kicked out of the impeachment hearing? That's right. Last Monday, a week ago, on October 14th, Gaetz was kicked out of a closed hearing of a former National Security Council expert on Russia who was being questioned in the House on the impeachment probe of President Trump. Gaetz, a 5-term congressman and member of the House Judiciary Committee, tried to attend testimony on Fiona Hill. She's the former deputy assistant to the president. However, Gaetz was told he had to leave because he was not a member of the House Intelligence Committee. See, he's a member of another committee, on the Judiciary Committee, and this was at the House Intelligence Committee. But all in the House of Representatives, all controlled by Democrats. The House Intelligence, Oversight, and Foreign Affairs Committees are among 3 of the 6 panels conducting the impeachment inquiry into the president. Well, Gaetz is a longtime Trump supporter. He told reporters outside the hearing, quote, "I appeared just to participate. I just wanted to observe as a member of Congress, as a member of the Judiciary Committee." Well, it didn't fly. He was kicked out. Traditionally, the Judiciary Committee has jurisdiction over impeachment, but it's been transferred to the Intelligence Committee by Nancy Pelosi under our good friend Schiff, Shifty Schiff. Also, on the same subject, a little different approach to it, Bernie Kerik, he was the former police commissioner in New York City, highly thought of, both parties. Did a great job when he headed up the police department there. And he points out that what the Dems are really trying is to stage a coup. Impeachment-seeking Democrats like Adam Schiff and a whistleblower tied to Democrats have exposed the impeachment inquiry as an attempted presidential coup. That's a quote from former New York Commissioner Bernie Cariff. Now, as I said, he did a great job as police commissioner. A quote from Bernie, he said that Schiff lied about having contact with the whistleblower. Everything he says is a lie just to promote his anti-Trump rhetoric for his attended coup. Carrick mentioned this on Newsmax Now, and he said that Schiff, who admitted he should have been more clear about pre-complaint contact with a whistleblower, and is under fire for making up a parody of President Trump's phone call with Ukraine before his committee and the American people. That's what this is all about. This is an attempted coup on the President of the United States that was constitutionally elected into office, and now they're trying to remove him. We know that. They've been trying to remove him before he ever got in. Carrick also pointed to the Democrats. Now they're even seeking public testimony from the president's accuser, which was the basis for the impeachment inquiry. They're not even trying to get that public testimony. They're saying that it's not necessary for him to make a statement. Of course, that's the basic cause for the impeachment. The Democrat cause is supposedly all about the whistleblower. So if you're not going to hear from him or her, or whoever it is, what are we doing here, Kirk asks? Well, the latest attacks and investigations into attorney Rudy Giuliani is part and parcel of this impeachment coup. It all had its beginning before Trump was even sworn in. What happened to Giuliani? Well, shouldn't surprise anybody. They went after the president. They went after his family, his children. They've gone after the president's staff and colleagues, and they've gone after about everybody. The president's friends, any supporters. And now they're going off after the president's attorney. It shouldn't surprise anybody, Carrick said. It's part of what they've been doing since before the man even took office. Let's take a look at another view on the Syrian situation. There's been a lot of disagreement over what was done, and I haven't been wholeheartedly behind it from what I could see, but maybe there's another side. Richard Rayl points out that Trump's Syrian plan reveals a master strategist, our president, in the White House. President Trump ordered U.S. Special Forces out of Syria to a chorus of howling Democrats and all the old experienced hands at the State Department and supposedly the military. And I have to tell you, I have had some doubts as well, me talking there. Democrats yelled that all hell was about to break loose. The Pentagon pulled out its hair. Europe trembled and belched. The Middle East girded for something awful, and they're getting it. Everybody thought we had to keep our troops around so the Turks wouldn't invade northern Syria and kill off all the Kurds. Well, everybody wanted to negotiate with the Kurds and figured out the only way to do that, little by little, was by getting allies to reason with Turkey and then hem and haw and maybe buy her off as in times past. Meanwhile, we had to keep the two ancient enemies, Kurds and the Turks, apart. Negotiations could only happen if our troops stayed. Well, Trump saw the situation different. As beautifully laid out by Sundance at Conservative Treehouse, removing our guys would leave the transit Turks vulnerable to an alliance with them against many of their enemies that are in the region. This thought didn't occur to the Turkish President Erdogan, who at first seemed delighted that we were leaving and promptly dispatched his troops into Syria as everybody had predicted he would. Thomas Lifson, reporting that ABC News was so appalled that it ran footage from a Kentucky gun range video. They called it a Turkish invasion. You probably saw where they got caught with that lie. And then they heaped abuse on Trump for atrocities committed against the Kurds. Had nothing to do with Turkey, the Kurds, or with the Turkish people. Even the usual level-headed Andrew Malcolm took the president severely to task for abandoning our Kurdish allies. George Conway, that's Kelly Conway's useless husband, who had never had a good word to say about the president, he styles the troops' withdrawal a blunder of historical proportions. Well, not so fast, fellas. The actual result hasn't been quite what everyone expected. Erdogan suddenly understood the box he was in when Trump authorized Treasury Secretary Mnuchin to prepare sanctions against Turkey. By themselves, sanctions haven't succeeded much in that part of the world. But in concert with the departure of U.S. troops, they became a scary signal that Turkey was all out there by her lonesome. Having steadfastly refused to negotiate, Erdogan now seriously rang up Trump and asked for an emergency conference. Trump sent Vice President Pence over there with Pompeo and National Security Advisor O'Brien to mediate negotiations with the Kurds. These are the long-sought negotiations brought about by the U.S. troops leaving. Well, only Donald Trump saw it. Just as only Donald Trump got North Korea to the table, they forced the Chinese to play fair, and they got the Mexicans to handle the immigrant caravans on our southern border. You see, Donald Trump plays from a different box. He marches to a different drummer. And once again, he exhibits strategic insight, not seen in the White House since George Washington. Well, same subject, different view, and not seen on the mainline media anyplace. Nothing on it on a Fox even. But military vets are coming to D.C. to praise Trump's Syrian decision. That's right. A group of conservative military veterans is set for appearances in D.C. to praise Donald Trump's troop withdrawal in Syria and to push Republican lawmakers to support a pullout from Afghanistan and other Middle East countries. This is a report carried in the Washington Examiner. Appearances by group members will include speeches at the National Press Club, lobbying visits to Congress. They're going to help to organize the November 12-13 event is coming from Wyoming House Majority Leader Tyler Lindholm. He served and was serving in the Navy on 9/11. If you listen to the sound clips of the Warhawks, you say you can't pull out now because a vacuum will be created, and we can't pull out in the future because a vacuum will be created, and you're tired of all that bull. If you want to do something about it, Lindholm says, call your local congressman. The Examiner noted Trump has received criticism from some Republican lawmakers for pulling troops out of northern Syria. Yeah, we've seen that, thanks to Mitt Romney, number one. Lindholm said, and I quote, it seems someone is actually pursuing diplomacy now rather than boots on the ground. It almost seems like the left has embraced the Neocon Warhawks. A quote from the good congressman from Wyoming. Meanwhile, let's remember something. Trump stands between America and tyranny. I've got information I won't get to today, probably, that it seems overwhelming. It seems overwhelming how fortunate we are. Anyway, the movie Titanic had one really good scene. I saw it 4 or 5 times. I was so impressed with it. The ship had already swiped the iceberg. The giant ship continued sailing along and appeared to be doing just fine. But there was one person on the ship, Thomas Andrews, knew that that ship was doomed. You see, our Andrews was a naval architect who was in charge of the plans to build the ship. And after he tells the captain and some other key people on the ship that it's going to sink, they react in disbelief. One declares that the ship can't possibly sink. Andrews responds, "She's made of iron, sir. I assure you she can, and she will. It is a mathematical certainty." It's one of cinema's great scenes as men wrestle with approaching doom, made all the stronger by Victor Garber's great performance. It's also the perfect metaphor for our current moment in history here in America. People pay too little attention to math because numbers lie far less effectively than words. There comes a point when a nation has raced over the cliff, but it may take years before the reality becomes obvious to everyone. The movie, the Titanic scene, comes to mind as we were heading into the election back in 2016. All indications were that Hillary Clinton was going to be elected. Based upon the math, America as a nation appeared doomed. Clinton was eyeing the White House like a ravenous wolf and relishing the opportunity to cast misery across America. But Wisconsin and then Michigan and finally Pennsylvania vomited all over her pantsuit. On election night, I had no idea what we had just elected, but the fact was it wasn't Clinton, and that was more than enough for one night. Personally, I'd been supporting Ted Cruz for the job. 3 years later, President Trump had shattered conservative expectations and may go down in history as one of the greatest U.S. presidents ever. This brings to mind another historical surprise. Remember, Winston Churchill was elevated to leadership during England's darkest days. He was elected against all odds. He was under withering attack by both the opposing party and his own in those early months, and his survival as a leader was very much in doubt. Well, Trump was also elevated under extraordinary circumstances that many would regard as historical anomaly. As a New York real estate mogul and non-politician, he was declared unelectable by prominent and respected Republican pundits. The media initially pushed his candidacy with glee, assuming it'd be the easiest Republican for their star to knock off in the general election. Well, we all know they were spectacularly wrong. Both Churchill and Trump were leaders. They were chosen, like Esther in the Bible, for such a time as this. Interestingly, both men were also considered beneath the dignity of the office by their manifest and often self-righteous critics. Both also survived relentless and withering political and cultural assaults while leading with formidable foreign foes. When they met with them, they were a big surprise. When Trump became president, leftists controlled nearly every level of power in America. Academia, media, the judiciary, the government bureaucracy, and entertainment, among others. Now, Trump's wrestling with one of the key institutions, which is almost a necessity to take care of, to handle, to reverse, before effectively opposing the other problems. Where Trump has inflicted the greatest damage to the left, and why he may yet save America, is the reshaping of our judiciary. The importance of this can't be overstated, folks. Trump has already placed 152 judges in courts with more than 100 vacancies still waiting to be filled, undoing the tremendous damage that's been done in the past 8 years. This incredible achievement does not get the attention it deserves. Anyone who shrugs at what has been accomplished here doesn't understand the significance. If Clinton had won, she'd have appointed 3 young liberal Supreme Court judges by now, even as Ruth Bader Ginsburg had moved into retirement. Liberals would have a 6-3 majority on the critical court, and it would have been nearly impossible to save constitutional government. Every court in America would be firmly in the left's hands. Leftists would be relentlessly engaging in lawfare across America, and conservatives would be almost defenseless to resist. Tyranny would be in full ascent, even as the nation was eclipsed by China at the world stage. Despite all this, Clinton would be a near shoo-in for re-election in 2020. We remain at an important historical inflection point. This is why the 2020 election is so critical, folks. President Trump, particularly if the Republicans also hold the Senate, can continue to build in the courts and undo some of the worst of the damage that has been done to America. But 8 years isn't enough to completely reverse the rot. The math remains terrible. Support for socialism is rising among Democrats. Illegal immigration in combination with birthright citizenship is flipping key states to the leftists. The debt is spiraling out of control even as Democrats promise obscene record spending, and liberals continue to control every cultural institution in America. The war was almost lost, and America does remain in great peril. America will likely elect a socialist in the not-too-distant future. While perhaps not quite a mathematical certainty, yet there's an excellent bet when factoring in all of the variables that it will happen. Holding the courts might just enable America to survive the damage and find its way back to constitutional governance. Far too many never-Trump Republicans do not understand the significance of the moment they're living in, or understand that we are now in a struggle just for our existence as a republic. America might not survive. Give up the White House in 2020, and Republicans may never win it back. The Republicans' sole hope to hold the White House in 2020 is President Trump. End of story. Now's not the time for a Romney-esque moral priming to earn a few head pats from a hostile media. No, folks, it is not the time. One of the most insignificant recent observations was when Sarah Sanders observed that, quote, I'm pretty sure the Democrat presidential candidates, they don't even like America, end quote, from Sarah Sanders. They don't, folks. This is not some loyal opposition party that disagrees on the ideal size of government. These folks hate America, and they want to destroy everything it was created to represent. Anything that damages Trump will help an America-hating socialist who promised to run her choice for Secretary of Education through a child-abused 9-year-old girl dressed in a suit. That was a mildly instructive moment in the insane CNN LGBT town hall, in that you had a false Cherokee pandering to a false boy in the modern leftist version of Peter Pan. Remember, truth is always one of the first casualties of leftism. The entire town hall was one giant promise to relentlessly persecute Christians while shredding religious freedom in America. Once tyranny fully ascends, darkness will follow, folks. And far too many Americans are still blinded by their bias toward the now. It's hard for people to imagine everything that they know overturned. Up to this point, the anti-American socialists have moved slowly, and America has been like a frog in the boiling pot of water. But this election has shown that they are transitioning to the next stage, when they'll move openly toward authoritarianism. We are in a pivotal moment in our history, folks. That is a fact. It's a mathematical certainty. It's long past time for all never-Trump Republicans, if they truly believe in conservative ideals and are not just camouflaged leftist collaborators, to return to the fold before it is truly too late. Now to some miscellaneous items that I want to get to. Start with this one. I want to ask you a question. Is Fox News joining the fake news pollsters? Those on the political right think that Fox News is an ally, while those on the left criticize Fox as a right-wing echo chamber. Well, both groups are wrong. Fox News has had a hard turn to the left in recent years. Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch are relegated to the Fox News WikiLeaks page, while the new bosses are the next generation of Murdoch's woke, liberal, and no fan of either President Trump or his supporters. Fox News shows are peppered with liberals, from Juan Williams and the recently departed Shepard Smith to Donna Brazile and Chris Hahn. The evening and weekend opinion show hosts are solidly conservative, but their number is dwindling. You see, Fox is still better, as we know, than CNN, for example. They don't have any conservative voices after firing Jeffrey Lord for the high crime of defending Trump on the Orange Man Bad network. As the impeachment scheme falls apart, with no actual wrongdoings by the president, no bribes, no extortion, no pay-to-play, no collusion, or anything else which Trump is accused of, but which Joe Biden actually did, the media has gone into overdrive to push the everyone hates Trumps and everyone wants him from office mantra. Who needs high crimes or misdemeanors if a majority of America wants Trump removed from office? Opinion. Impeachment. Yep, impeachment by the opinion poll. Impeachment is being boosted and promoted by the usual Democrat media outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Washington Post. But Fox News' so-called fair and balanced has been considerably more reasoned than the rest of the Trump-loathing media. At least until Rupert Murdoch's two sons got more involved in the news business, tilting Fox News leftward. And don't forget a recent addition to the Fox Corporation board, pushing the network further in the never-Trump direction. You may not have even heard this, but former House Speaker Paul Ryan, remember that puke? He took a new job, and he thinks his new job as a board member of the Fox Corporation will finally allow him to do something about President Trump. This according to a new report in Vanity Fair. The latest example is still yet another impeachment poll, this time by a Fox News poll showing majority opinion in favor of not only the impeachment, but also impeachment and removal. Now, folks, we've talked before on previous programs. I pointed out to you that polling can be a farce. It's not always fair and balanced, and it's seldom honest. There's a lot of factors that go into it that we don't know about. Now, this question by Fox on the poll was, do you think President Trump should be impeached and removed from office or not? It was ran on October 6th through the 8th this year. Yes, 51%. No, 43%. Don't know, 6%. Boy, that was a great headline for CNN and MSNBC to retweet endlessly. Even Fox News has turned against their favorite son, Donald Trump. Or so they say. As with all the polls, the questions are who did the actual poll and how was the poll conducted? Is this a fair and balanced poll reflecting the Fox News motto? Or is this more fake news designed to fuel the impeachment push, motivating fence-sitting Republicans in the House to follow the supposed will of the people? The Fox poll was conducted by Braun Research. Listen to me on this. Braun Research is a privately held marketing and public opinion research firm founded by Amanda Braun. Miss Braun is a lesbian. She's a deputy organizer, director, and training director for, quote, For Our Future, end quote. And what is the For Our Future? That's a progressive political action committee. She was a regional organizing director for Hillary Clinton in 2016's presidential campaign, and she attended Hillary's alma mater. In other words, she's a solid liberal. Of all the pollsters out there, Fox News found one to the left for the anti-Trump poll. Now to the methodology. Their sample of registered, not likely voters was 48% Democrat, 40% Republican, and only 12% independent. Is that a fair representation of the U.S. electorate? I don't think so. Gallup, as of a month ago, provided an answer. The electorate identified at 29% Republican, 31% Democrat. That's virtually an even split. But a hopping 38% are independent. That's far from the 12% in the Braun-Fox poll. Aside from oversampling Democrats, which is a consistent pattern in impeachment polls, undersampling independents skews the results. The Wall Street Journal reports only 42% of independents favor impeachment. If the Braun-Fox poll surveyed voters based on Gallup's party affiliation above, the support for impeachment would be below 50%. Fake news is being peddled to Americans about Ukraine. They're getting it from network and cable news to most newspapers, with honest reporting delegated to Rush Limbaugh and a few conservative pundits. Is it any wonder the average low-information voter believes Trump did something nefarious? Just as we were told for 2 years regarding Russian collusion, a constant media drumbeat without any corroborating evidence. In comparison, look at Rasmussen. They're the most accurate pollster, or were at least in the 2016 election. In its daily presidential tracking poll, Trump was at a pivotal 49 approval on October 11th, compared with Obama at 44%, exactly 8 years ago, 49 to 44. Rasmussen surveys likely voters, a more accurate sample than registered voters, many of whom don't vote. Do the majority of Americans really want to remove a president they support? Another barometer, look at the Trump rallies. 2 this past week, 20,000 or so in attendance. A similar number on the outside, and twice that number unable to obtain tickets. All that in deep blue, Minneapolis. Fox News has joined the anti-Trump media in using polls to create news and influence opinion rather than to fairly support public opinion. We've reached a new low in America when a popular and duly elected president can be impeached by dogged opinion polls. Certainly this is a time for us as believers to continue to support our president in prayer. Goodbye until next week.